Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to the week number 2 of One Week One Prep. One Week One Prep is a series of episodes where we're targeting emergency preparedness 1 week at a time. So last week we have covered water and hopefully you have enjoyed the episode and participated in my little challenges. So today guys we're going to be talking about food. And I'm going to be trying to keep it very basic because the food preparedness could be a very vast subject, but I'm going to try to make it very concise and very easy for you to understand to where you need to start. First of all, just to make you aware that on average, UK supermarkets only hold approximately 3 days worth of food. Just 3 days. But that doesn't include any emergency. And I'm pretty sure you can understand if any emergency or any potential scenario that happened, like we've seen before, the supermarket shelves could be empty within absolute hours. So this is where it's really, really important just to have at least a few days worth of food in your pantry. We've even been told by the government that we need to prepare our 72-hour kit and have 3 days worth of food in a cupboard. And again, guys, I've done many videos and I did tell you that 3 days really not that long of a time, because in general emergency situation, again, like we potentially experienced before, we'll be needing to rely on our pantry for a little bit longer than 3 days. But nonetheless, 3 days is a very good point to start. So I'm going to try to keep this video very brief and very to the point, just not to confuse everybody. We're not going to be talking about the food preservation, none of this at the moment. We're just going to be going with the bare basics. There's been some research carried out in terms of what people have, and apparently less than 50% of us actually have more than a couple of days worth of food in our pantry. So now, for you beginners, for somebody who doesn't have anything potentially in their pantry, first thing for you guys is to build yourself a 3 days worth of food. And trust me, it's really not a lot. If it's more than one of you, of course, please do adjust this accordingly. So I've got the printable list for you, as I said, on the website there. So have a look. But generally, what you should be buying, of course, do pick what you eat and what your family eats. But first of all, you need to have some carbs. So we've got the pastas, rice, oats, noodles, and couscous. Again, it's optional, but really good option for the low power required to cook it. Proteins, so consider yourself tin tuna, beans, lentils, any of sort of canned meats, spam, that sort of thing. Fruits and vegetables, we're talking about was the tinned carrots, tomatoes, tinned peas, sweet corn, again, whatever your family like and whatever you like to make your meals from. Extras, so we've got the UHT milk, cereal, crackers, and soups. We're talking about potentially the dry powdered soups. And of course, things like morale boosters like teas, coffees, chocolates, if you eat crisps, and maybe a glass of wine or beer or anything else you might consume. So see, all of this is very self-explanatory. So if you are literally just immersing into your preparedness journey, then I suggest to buy majority of the things in the tins that don't require cooking. Because again, depending on scenario, and again, what we've been advised, it's best to be able to buy something in a tin because you can open this up and you can eat this right away without needing to reheat this. Things like maybe even the tuna and the crackers, again, it doesn't require much cooking. So do bear this in mind when you're compiling your 3 days worth of food. So just to give you an idea, so for one person, okay, if you're doing for your 3 days stash, for example, you will require roughly 1 bag of oats or 1 box of cereal, again, depending what you like, 1 UHT milk, 1 pack of pasta or rice, again, depending what you prefer, maybe some instant noodles for a snack or for dinner, 1 tin of tuna, 1 tin of beans, and 1 jar of peanut butter. Got 1 tin tomatoes, 1 mixed vegetables, 1 sweet corn, 1 tin of peas, 2 tins of fruit if you do like to have, or you have a sweet tooth and you want to have something sweet after dinner. And then I've got 1 pack or 2 packs of crackers, okay, depending on the size of them and the weight. So this is basically gives you an idea of your selection. So it's very little if you think about this. If I just put this in front, and I probably should have done, it's very little, and it is very cost effective if you do buy yourself some budget brands. So the main thing, guys, right, is to keep your tins in a cool, dark place. And again, many people sort of wondering, what do you mean by cool, dark place? Not everybody has a cool, dark place. What I mean is just don't put them by the window, don't put them under the windowsill unless it's in a dark box. Basically, the coolest place possible. Kitchen cupboard works absolutely fine. What I normally do, guys, is I put a date on my tin. So rather than looking out on the bottom or the side or the top of the tin, tiny little writing, take a Sharpie and just write, say like expiry 7/26. So when the tins go in your cupboard, you can easily see the dates and you can easily rotate them rather than pick up each tin and see what date it is. If this is something that you consume, then try to rotate the stock. So basically means take the oldest date out and put the newly bought tins at the back. This is that if that's what you do. If you don't consume those foods and just want to stockpile, that's fine. Put them in there, put the dates in and let them be, but just make sure they are out of light. And of course, at the same time, don't forget to actually write down what you have, especially if you're like me, if you like to stash in food in random places. It is very important to remember what you put and where, because trust me, if you proceed with your prepping journey further on and you end up having your stashes everywhere, after a while, even if you think, I'll definitely remember what I have, where I have this, trust me, you will forget. So please make sure you make a note where you put your stash. So basically, this goal for you guys, for all who are just preparing, is just get yourself 3 days worth of food. Go into my website, have a look through the list, pick what you want. There's quantities there, there's a portion sizes there for you to easily calculate this, so you don't have to overbuy this if you can't afford to. It's really laid out, really straightforward. So yes, 3 days for you if you're just starting. If you already have 3 days, then please try to push yourself for at least 1 or 2 weeks. So now guys, we're moving on to slightly more advanced preppers. It is very difficult to compile this video together because we're all in a different position in terms of the preparedness. Because if I say to you, okay, get yourself another week or 2 weeks worth of food, you might already think you might already have a year. So that's, it makes it a little bit difficult. But generally, okay, this is kind of some thoughts for you to consider. And of course, at the same time, I do want to sort of prompt you to be able to overlook your certain preparedness things. So anyway, first of all, we're talking about the if you wanted to, if you can, is expand your supply of food, be it by another week or 2. Of course, our aim generally as a preppers is to have as much food as possible for ideally a couple of years. A year is a really good benchmark, but 3 to 6 months, I think, is an average what preppers trying to do. So depending where you are, okay, and what you can afford, just get yourself another maybe week or 2 worth of food. Right, next thing, calorie counts. So aim for 2,000 calories a day. And I know many of us, I think, preppers fall into the hole of basically stocking up on tins, stocking up of rice, stocking up of beans, but we generally don't count the calories or know how many calories we have. Some of us probably do. I totally get it. I'm pretty sure there are some people that have the spreadsheets with all the calories and all the tins. I totally understand. But I'm pretty sure the majority of us that are busy getting our daily life, we just buy stuff, we roughly know the calories in our proteins and everything like that, and we just shove this back in the cupboard. So basically overlook your stash, have a look and see whether you could figure out how many calories you have in store altogether. I know it could be really time consuming, but just kind of step back and have a think. Think if you do have enough calories and not just substance. So now as we're talking about the balanced nutrition, it's all well and good for us guys stocking up on rice and beans, because I know many of us do. And the fact is you can actually survive on rice and beans is one thing. But don't overlook the whole general things like the fats, the proteins, the fiber, and the vitamins. Yes, tins do have the vitamins and a lot of other things going for them, but they're nowhere near as good as for you to buy the fresh food. So if the fresh foods are not available, and if you're not growing yourself, then do consider looking maybe at buying some vitamins, beta vitamin drinks or chewy vitamins or just general vitamin tablets. Basically, the point is have a look at your pantry and make sure you don't have any gaps when it comes to the nutritional value. So now cooking energy. So balance your energy heavy food like rice and beans and pastas with something else. Have a look whether you have enough of the things that do require very little cooking. And we're talking about things like the quinoa or couscous. They require very little cooking. With the couscous, you can just boil some water, pour this over, leave it for a couple of minutes, and it's ready to go. So look in the pantry and see if you do have anything like that. If not, then maybe consider getting some. So next thing, storage methods, guys. Again, I don't know what position you're in, how much you've got, what you've done, what you haven't done. But again, a lot of people seem to have a habit of just buying foods, things like rices and pastas and flour, shoving this in a box and leaving this alone and thinking that, well, rice is going to last forever, pasta is going to last forever, beans are going to last forever, just as they are. Well, it is not the case, unfortunately not the case. So the packaging your food for long-term storage is very, very important if you're aiming for a few years. So if you haven't invested in yourself into the Mala bags, do consider, I've done many videos to to explain what to put in the Mala bags and how to seal them. They're basically 4 bags that once you put your rice, you put the oxygen absorber in, you melt the top or iron the top, and then obviously when it sits there, it takes all the oxygen out, and basically your rice then will sit on the shelf for 20, maybe more years. So basically consider looking into that and investing into that if you haven't already. The next thing consider is the vacuum sealer. If you have one, it's very good. It's handy for a medium-term storage. It's basically bags that you seal, you put the food, and the machine takes the air out. Okay, it's not as good as the Milo bags because you're only good for approximately a couple of years. Because being plastic, the oxygen eventually will seep into that, but they are really good for sealing the jars, glass jars especially. So if I'm dehydrating some apples or some fruit, I can put them in a glass jar, put the lid on, and vacuum seal the air out, and that will make my apples or fruit shelf stable for many years as well. So this is basically where I'm going to leave the food preservation and the food long-term storage without getting into too complicated video. So anyway, next thing, right? So variety and morale. Again, the point being, avoid just rice and beans. I know it's super easy and I fall into that all the time. I buy rice, beans and a pasta all the time because, well, guess what? It is very cheap and we think that is great. It's going to last for a while with the proper storage. But again, avoid, because the food fatigue will set in like within a couple of weeks. If you're constantly eating the same stuff, yes, it's going to keep you going, you know, it gives you what you need technically, but you'll get really, really bored of this to the point that you probably wouldn't want to eat this anymore. So do consider and make sure your pantry does have a variety of goods. And of course, we're talking about the somewhat subject of buttering, and we're talking really if the thing's gone really to pot, then having some extra butter food. So if you have been or have not been buying some extra things like maybe chocolates or coffees or cigarettes, depending what it is, because generally in emergencies people do anything for a little bit of addiction or something that they're used to. Again, it's not something I suggest you invest a lot of the money in, because let's be honest, for us to get into the point of the buttering are probably rather remote. I think things will collapse by far worse that will lead to that, if that makes sense. But it is always handy to have just a little box with a few extra things that are not relevant to your prepper pantry. They're sitting there as the exchange goods in case of an emergency. Label them, put them away, and happy days. So now, right, we're talking about your challenge, guys, for the slightly more prepared. And I thought about it for a while. It's rather difficult to give a challenge for the preparedness people because, well, depends how long you've been preparing for, how much food you have, but some options for you. All right, so you can choose what you want or you can do them all. It's up to you. Again, all of that is printable on my website if you wanted to then have a look or print it. But the first one, rather simple one, but I think all of you could really take part in this one. So we're talking about the new food challenge. So buy yourself one shelf-stable food that you've never bought before, give it a try, cook it up or whatever it needs to do, give it a try and see if you like this. If you do, then you know you can then stock it up. It's basically, I always tell you to think outside the box. And generally with my little prepping hauls, when I go around, I try to find something different all the time for the sake of the flavor. And if you just go to your normal supermarkets, you're normally faced with pretty much the same stuff all the time. But if you do step outside into maybe some Asian supermarkets or, if the Lidl do different weeks every week from different foods, it's quite often you can find something that you possibly haven't tried. So that challenge is the first one. Pick one of the foods, shelf-stable food, give it a try. And if you like it, then you have an option to stock up on some more. If not, maybe buy another one or maybe don't bother. So now moving on to the 3-day pantry test. So suggestions. So spend 72 hours eating only from your stored food. Identify gaps, mistakes, and anything else you might miss. Again, right, we do this all the time. We just buy stuff, put this away. We're not necessarily eating our preps all the time. But then it's difficult to potentially establish if you have a problem. So for example, you have an idea, you're going to be cooking yourself rice and beans, but then you come to cook it and you don't have either the sauce or something else. Basically, put this to test if you wanted to for 3 days, trying to eat from your pantry and see what you're missing. So the next one is this no cook challenge. So maybe consider getting yourself a group of foods that don't require cooking altogether. And I'm not just talking about the tins, okay, but trying to think outside the box. Okay, there's few pre-prepared meals like a cold pasta, tuna pasta salad, things like that. I'm not going to give you any ideas. That's the whole idea of the challenge, but just put a group of foods together that don't require cooking, but at the same time taste half decent because they don't need cooking and they're ready to eat. And the last one is to build yourself a complete ingredient kit. Again, I'm pretty sure you, like myself, you just have stuff sitting in the cupboards, and when you think you need an access to in case of an emergency, you just pull some stuff out and you are able to make the meal. So the challenge on this one again is to actually put the kit together. Literally get yourself a box or whatever else you guys want, or put this on a counter, get the stuff out, what you think you need to make the meal, and then cook it and see if that works. Because again, there may be some additions required, something we haven't thought about, something you need to get in your pantry in terms of maybe herbs or spices, anything like that. So this is kind of very easy one as well. And chances are, really, if you're more prepared, that we shouldn't fail on that, but it's definitely worth a try. So there we are, right? This is the selection of your mini challenges. As I said, guys, you can pick where you want or you do all of them. It is totally up to you. All depends on where you are currently at your prepping journey. So, of course, I always said to you guys, we're going to be doing one of the myths. Every episode, we're going to be talking briefly about the misconceptions. So, one that I've picked today, we're going to be talking about the tins. So, the misconception is, and a lot of people think that the tins last forever. Unfortunately, not. Yes, tins will last a very, very many years past the best before date, providing they're kept in, again, cool, dark place. But unfortunately, especially with the quality of the tins there is right now and the poor cord tins, mistakes and things do happen. So a lot of the times what I've noticed myself in the pantry, that the tins rust, okay? This seems to be not relevant to the supermarket or the brand, even the posh ones, they just rust. They end up rusting. And if the rust penetrates through into the food, that will deem that food inedible, because in the end of the day, if it's rust all the way in, the air will get in and your tin will be ruined. At the same time, tins just bulge, and I've experienced that with the baked beans. I had the baked beans 2 years past date. They've been all good, and then suddenly they're all just blown. They're just blown. They're just blown up, top and bottom, all bulged up. 2 years past date is not a lot, but it does happen. And the last one, of course, is the acidity in foods. Things like the tinned tomatoes or maybe tinned oranges or clementines, whatever they are. Because they are highly acidic, eventually the acid will eat through the tin. And again, it happened to me with one tin of tomatoes, only one so far, and that was only 1 year past the best before date, but nonetheless, it does happen. But I can tell you that for sure, that in the jars as well, I experienced that with the vinegary content, so with the pickles, if they sit there too long, especially if at some point the jar was upside down for a little bit of time, if it was in your pantry, fell on the side, sat there for a little while. I had some jars that literally lids are rotted through with rust from the inside and out. Okay, it was fairly fresh content, but it rusted through. So unfortunately, things do happen. So the best thing is for you guys, advice to make sure it doesn't happen is when you bring your tins in, give them a wipe. Okay, because sometimes when you get stuff in, if it's raining, tins get a bit wet, and if you just put them in the pantry on the top of each other, they're wet, it'll get rusty. Okay, so point is, get them in, give them a proper wipe, put them in the pantry. If you layer in tins, put a bit of cardboard in between or a bit of plastic to make sure they don't touch. And otherwise, the best we can do is to make sure where they sit is a bit cooler, is dark, and the temperature doesn't fluctuate as much. So there we are, guys. Well, hopefully you have found this helpful. Don't forget, please go to my website, print out if you want to, or just have a look of the information there. Otherwise, I hope you have enjoyed this series. Please don't forget, comment down below with your progress and if you're enjoying the series. Otherwise, guys, thank you for watching. Thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next week. Bye-bye.